You know what just occurred to me? That episode that I had to trash because of how everything fell apart with my face. It was the episode that was supposed to be out January 15th, 2025. So if you look just a few episodes back from this one, it just says an update from Jen instead of the regular podcast episode. And as I mentioned in that episode, we had a podcast episode all set up, and we just had to hit delete on it, which was very frustrating because everything had changed since that episode because my face got messed up like the day after we recorded it. So that was fun. But you know what just now occurred to me? And this tells you how on top of my life I am, that it is just now occurring to me. I mean, we're recording this now in late February, and things are dawning on me from January 15th. Is that that was the episode where I made the official big drum roll please announcement. And in my panic about my horrible face, I forgot to ever reschedule that big, hey, here's where I'm coming. So exciting. So can we just pretend, can we all go back in time just a little bit? Can we pretend that we're a month back in time. It is late January. It's not late February. Can I redo this? So, okay, do we have a drum roll sound effect?
Yes, we do.
Oh, look at this. This is a really classy podcast. We have two sound effects. We have a drum roll. So I know a lot of you guys already know these cities at this point because I've mentioned them in passing a few times. But let me experience what it would be like if I had been on the ball enough to do a real tour announcement. So everybody, hey, I've got great news. I'm now revealing the cities for my spring 2025 tour. Drum roll, please. So exciting. You have no idea about these cities. Act surprised, everyone. Buffalo, Detroit, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, Richmond, Virginia Beach, Denver, Plano, Tyler, Columbus, Ohio, and New York City. Yes. Yes. Very exciting. I am filming my next comedy special in Denver. That's April 9th, Denver. And then it looks like I have things mostly nailed down to film in New York City too. We're filming on the Upper West Side. It's a great theater. That theater's so cool. It's like a speakeasy in New York City. So the show's going on either way, but I just... You know how New York City is, like everything is very small. So it's hard to find space to set anything up, but I think we can make it work. We'll just all be in there like sardines with some cameras. But yeah, Buffalo, Detroit, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, Richmond, Virginia Beach, Denver, filming there. Plano, Tyler, Columbus, New York, filming there. So very exciting. All right, now let me tell you what we are talking about today. We're talking about the concept of taking up space. That could be taking up space on your family's calendar. So asking for time that you would love to have to do something that is fun for you. And when I think of an example, the only thing I can really think of is sitting in a dark room alone with a silent screen. But I bet that other people have different things that they would like to do for fun. I just can't imagine what they would. I don't know what is fun in life outside of that. Or taking up space, just taking a seat on, if you're at I'm always on those rental car buses going to and from the airport. And sometimes I'm like, oh, can I sit? I don't know. Just so it could be physically taking up space. It could be standing up for yourself, verbally taking up space. It could be just, again, I think a lot of what we worry about is taking up space on the calendar, either in the macro, like some women worry about getting a job if they want to do that, the time that would take, or just the micro moments, like you just want an hour to go take a nap because you need it, but you don't really feel like you have the right to take up that kind of space. That's something that I have always struggled with, especially as a people pleaser. And I've gotten so much better about it over the years. And I felt like someone might need a little discussion of this topic today. So that is what we will be talking about, how you can learn to take up space in a way that is good and healthy and village building and loving, and not going so far as to like I always think of this one reality show I saw one time where this mom was like, I have to do 2 hours of Pilates in the morning and then get my massage. And like, she was literally never home because she was getting massages all day. So most of us, we kind of fear being that person. What if I take up too much space? What if I take it too far? There is such a thing as taking up too much space. You're being rude. You're being narcissistic. You're being ego-centered. But most of you guys, 99.9% of you guys, that fear is very unfounded. You do not need to worry about taking up too much space. You are going way too far the opposite direction. So that is the main topic. The way this podcast works is we set it up straight out of the gate at the beginning, and then we get into the meat of the main topic in the second half of the show. The first half of the show is where I talk about what's new, other smaller topics that are on my mind. And this is the Jen Fulwiler Show. Welcome, new listeners. We are coming to you from Austin, Texas. This is the podcast where you learn the art of the village hustle. That's being a hot girl boss, or hot boy boss, who knows that love and family and community are the foundation of all real success. Another mission of this podcast is to teach you how to step into your villain era, hopefully without physically looking like a villain like I currently do. Yes, I am still covering my face. I don't care. I don't care if it's getting old. Like, I'm not putting my face out there the way it looks right now. So someone was like, how long are you going to keep doing that? Until my face looks better. This could potentially be a permanent look. I will never. Yeah, I'm very stubborn on this. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. We publish new episodes every Wednesday morning. Our lovely producer is Caitlin White. Also, we do content that is nothing short of excellence on the Patreon. And actually, my producer and myself are busy women. We have established this on many episodes. I have 6 kids. Caitlin has 4 kids. So sometimes things fall through the cracks and we end up doing technical behind the scenes stuff, just live on the air, so to speak, with you guys. My background is in live radio, so I don't edit this podcast. It's just too much. We're too busy. Caitlin, are you busy next Saturday if we do a Patreon live? I knew there was something I forgot. Could you do Friday or Saturday?
Friday, I'm getting a new mattress on Saturday.
Fun. So could you do Friday the 28th?
Yes.
Okay, guys, I think so. We literally have not discussed this. Wait, I think I have a speaking event on Saturday. What? Oh, it's a private event. Whoa. Okay, I need to.
We're going to have to circle back.
Well, boy, just a lot is coming up live here on the podcast. Am I in Boerne, Texas? Okay, well, I don't know, guys. I might be doing something Saturday. Okay, potentially, we could have a Patreon live State of the Dumpster Fire address on Friday, February 28th. But because I forgot to deal with this earlier, I'm not sure, but we probably will if we can make it work. And these are the updates where I tell you about the latest dumpster fire in my life. The big one now being my face. I have come to really count on you guys' opinions about when I should show my face, how I should handle this. I mean, I'm really kind of being a little bit codependent with you guys on the Patreon, honestly. Like, I'm probably valuing you guys' opinions a little too much. So I can't wait. I've been, having you guys take a look at my face, see if you see any progress, that sort of thing. And then we also do a lot of other bonus content on the Patreon. And you can find that at patreon.com/thisisjen. That is Jen with one N. Patreon.com/thisisjen. Okay. Now, speaking of things going on with my face, I think I have to quit acupuncture. I've been toying with this on many episodes. Here's the thing with acupuncture. Everybody loves it except for me. Everybody loves it, but you can never pin them down on what exactly it did for them. Have you noticed this? Mm-hmm. This is because, okay, I keep asking anyone and their dog. I mean, I will talk to anyone about what therapies have kind of helped people. And I have been having people hold space with me about the fact that I do not enjoy people bopping needles into sensitive parts of my body. It's not an enjoyable experience. And also, I'm a fragile waif. Look at me. I mean, I'm telling you, every medical professional or alternative practitioner or whatever who I've ever been to, they all comment on how fragile I am. They're all like, what, that you're sensitive to that? That's crazy. I'm a fragile waif of a person. I should be living my life tucked away in a castle on the moors in England. I don't even know what the moors are, but I read about it in Wuthering Heights. My perception is that the moors are a region of England where it rains all the time, and where it is customary, if a woman is having a bad day, for her to run outside in the rain until she collapses, and then she gets sick, and everyone who wronged her feels really bad about it. They're like, we are horrible people. Do you see what we made her do? Man, I thought about that so much when I was a teenager, because, sorry, tangent alert, but this is, did you guys, wait, tangent, the sound effect. Yeah, our special sound effect that we had our scientists here at the show custom design. Did you read Wuthering Heights in high school?
No, I did not. No.
Really captivated my imagination, because I was like, this is the pale waif lifestyle that I have been looking for. And I don't remember a lot of the plot, except for how everybody felt bad for this young girl. She was probably, the character was about my age when I read the book, and they were being horrible to her, very relatable to me at the time. And she stormed outside the walls of this manor that she lived in, and it was cold and it was rainy, but she had to run out because everyone was being so horrible. And she got cold and she caught a sickness, and I think this was Wuthering Heights. Well, whatever. Maybe it was a Bronte or a different Bronte book. Maybe it was her sister's book, or maybe it was a Jane Austen book. I don't know. But I really got into that genre of pale, fragile women teaching people lessons by running out in the cold, rainy air and collapsing. So, I tried that. But I lived in Austin, Texas, which is on the same line of latitude as Cairo. So I would just fling myself outside and get stung by a wasp. And then I'd be sweating and gross. Nobody wants to be around. My hair is plastered to my head. Not with a cool, misty rain, but because it's 105 degrees outside with a heat index of 120. And then I then if I throw myself down on the ground, you've all harmed me so much. I can't, I throw myself down on the ground and I immediately get eaten alive by fire ants. Yeah. I mean, it's just not the same. You can't live the Downton Abbey lifestyle in Austin, Texas. It's clear in my mind how we got from acupuncture to that. Just so you know. It's all very clear to me. Hit the end tangent button. I know the logical steps that got us there. Okay, listen, on this podcast, just buckle up. You're just along for the ride. So acupuncture. So my acupuncturist gal, I like her very much. And, she's from a region of the world where people are just tougher. She's not, there's not the Chinese version of Wuthering Heights. Nobody was ever like, oh my gosh, this waif, I mean, and so clearly she doesn't know what to do with me because I'm sensitive to everything she does. And I feel like there has to be a way to get those needles in there without bopping them. She puts the needles on my skin and I'm like, that's probably good. I think we're fine. And she goes, bop. And she yeah. Yeah, and she'll do it in the space between two of my toes.
Ew.
Yes, right above my belly button. Oh. Right above my lip, like on my upper lip, where someone would have a beauty mark, right there. Whack, a needle. No. Right in. I hate it. So, I live in Austin. I mean, I know a lot of hippies. And so I'm like, sure, I bet I have a wide network of people who are experienced with acupuncture. Indeed, I do. So I've talked to many people about this. The conversation always goes exactly the same. It's, hey, I'm trying to decide whether or not I should do acupuncture. And then this is my hippie friend. So she'd be like, oh yes, oh my gosh, I love acupuncture. It's so good. And I say, okay, good, that's good. I have a problem that I need fixed very urgently. So, tell me about it. What did it help you with? And so depending on, whatever, let's say, I don't want to divulge what anyone's going through. So let's say she'll be like, yes, I have explosive bowel syndrome. And it's caused me a lot of embarrassing situations. And oh my gosh, acupuncture, just chef's kiss. I love my acupuncture gal, Mackenzie, who does my acupuncture. See, that's these people are going the wrong direction, I think. So she'll be like, oh, Mackenzie does great acupuncture for me. And I'll say, wow. So how do you think it resolved your explosive bowel syndrome? And they'll be like, oh, it didn't. I still have it. And I'm like, so what do you think, like, what is your, like what baseline changed? Was it like you were having explosive bowel syndromes 5 times a day, and after acupuncture, it was just once? Like, what measurable result did you see from acupuncture? And she'll be like, Kaylee is such a tender heart, or Mackenzie is such a tender heart, and she just holds space with me with everything. And I'm like, but what did it do? What did it do? And everybody raves about acupuncture, but they've never once told me it actually solved their issue. And they can't even tell me anything it changed. They're just like, oh my, and then the other thing is, this was another conversation I had. I said, I'm thinking about quitting acupuncture. And they're like, no, don't do that. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I just don't, my gut instinct says it's not, my face isn't looking any better. And I've had quite a few sessions, like multiple times per week. I mean, I'm doing it. I'm doing the thing. As much as I hate it, I'm doing it. And they'll be like, oh, it really, it just makes you feel good. And it just makes everything aligned. And I'm like, okay, again, can you give me a baseline? I'm willing to track that sometimes there are things that are difficult to quantify and measure. And I do think some people get overly, I believe that there are treatments that there might not be double-blind, peer-reviewed studies that prove that the treatments are efficacious, but there's enough anecdotal data out there that you're like, okay, I think there's something to this. So I am staying open-minded. And I'll say, could you just describe, how did your vibes feel better before and after acupuncture? And then this is what they do. They'll be like, did you know that acupuncture is an ancient art? And I'm like, but that doesn't answer my question. Now you're speaking about acupuncture generally. I know, but like, what did it do for you? Give me, like, your vibes were at a 2 and now they're at a 5. Like, but they won't do it. And everyone's like telling me I should do acupuncture, but cannot tell me one benefit that it actually had for them. So I'm done. I think I'm done. And I hate to say that, because again, I like this gal, I like the fact that you can tell she is really trying hard not to be annoyed with my fragile waif self. When I'm like, she's like, oh, did that hurt? And I'm like, yes, when you karate chop the needle into my lip. Yes. But I swear I'm the first person to have this problem. I swear, because she's like, what? Well, okay. And then she does it again. And that's how I can tell she doesn't really care, because she just goes through this kind of performance art of, oh no. And again, I say that as a compliment, actually, because that's what I need. I mean, I need to stop being such a fragile waif. So I like her response to all of this, but I just can't do it. I'm just too fragile. And also she was like, like we need to balance your whole system, which I'm like, I agree. I am jacked up, girl. Like, yes, let's balance everything. So then she was bopping needles into the palm of my hand. Oh. Yeah. And then like right above my belly button and around, like, in a little lower than that, not like crazy, not like I need to report her or anything, but like in that, like, it's just an area that you don't want people bopping needles. Yeah. And when I'm like, she's like, the look on her face is so pure of like, I've never seen anyone react this way. Never. I'm like, really? Not one person has been like, I think you struck a nerve. And she's like, okay, just, Caitlin, the other thing she does, we established that you have never done acupuncture, right?
Correct. I have never and will never.
The other thing she does is when it hurts, because sometimes, I think she just zaps right into a nerve.
Oof.
Yeah. And she'll wiggle it.
Like after she hits it in, she just wiggles it a little?
Only when I say it hurts.
Oh, that's nice.
I'm like, ah! And then she's like, okay, we'll fix it. But I'm like, but you hit a nerve. Don't wiggle. Don't wiggle. No wiggling.
Back out.
I have a no wiggling policy. It's no, terrible.
Wiggle free zone.
Yeah. You're right. I'm going to show. I'll do one more session. Wiggle free zone. Man, if that's not, yes, and that's true with Botox. Like, look, anything, wiggle free zone. Let me say too, I've also, so I have a you guys, my life is so stupid. I have a physical therapist for my face. That's a real life curveball. and if people are like, who's Jen Fulwiler? And they're like, I don't really care. So don't take a lot of time telling me. You can be like, listen, she made some bad decisions. Her face is really jacked. And you might have thought like, well, if she's a stand-up comic, should she probably not be messing with that area of her body? You'd think. But now she has a face physical therapist, and they'd be like, but who has a face physical therapist? Like, nobody. No, but she does. So that's how you can describe me to people. But this gal is great. And oh, you know what? Hit the seamless tapestry sound effect. What I learned from meeting this face physical therapist is similar to the next topic that I was going to go into. So that is, so let me make the point with this face physical therapist. It is actually very pleasant meeting with her. I like her a lot. It turns out, I think, I haven't said her name, so I don't think I'm divulging anything confidential, but this podcast has gotten me banned from enough places. Like, I don't want to add to the list. I've not said her name in case this is confidential, but she is a spoken word poet in addition to being a face physical therapist. And I was like, oh, so I'm in the right place. Yeah. That's my vibe. Someone who is sciencey. She's a highly respected, highly trained physical therapist, really knows a lot about nerve systems and things like that, but also a spoken word poet. And what's funny is we talked about how there are some open mics in town that do both comedy and spoken word poetry. And we had this instant bonding moment when we were like, that's literally the worst idea that anyone has had in the history of planet Earth. Like, no audience member is like, I'd like a little bit of both. Could we get like spoken word poetry can be great, comedy can be great. You don't combine the two. And so she has actually been on open mics in Austin where people were trying to do comedy and she's trying to do poetry. So an instant bonding moment. And so I am learning so much about how to move your face. You guys had no idea. You did not have any idea how much is involved, how many facial movements you can learn and exercises. This is an actual life that someone is living. I have an hour of face exercises that I need to do every day. And I have to look in the mirror while doing them to make sure I'm doing them correctly. That if you ever wonder what I'm doing, some of you guys tell me that you imagine we're hanging out and you're talking to me, which I love. Yes, I'm with you there in spirit. If you're like, I wonder what Jen's doing right now, probably making ridiculous clown faces at myself in the mirror. And you know what else? None of the physical therapy face exercises that you make as part of face physical therapy are flattering. if you ever want to feel like you are an ancient hag from the sea, just dredged up. You know how sometimes in Scotland they find bog people that they died like 10,000 years ago, but they look surprisingly, I mean, you can tell like what their hairstyle was and what they were wearing because the bog preserved them. But they are also these shriveled up, hideous mummies whose faces are contorted in a very troubling expression. That is what I see in the mirror when I do my face. I'm like a bog mummy, just ancient, hideous. Just, I mean, it is such a journey in humility. I'm very down to earth. I'm very like, wow, who knew I had so many wrinkles? You don't know your face's capacity to wrinkle until you are doing face physical therapy. And it's like, pretend that you need to touch the corner of your mouth to your eyeball while scrunching your nose. It's like, wow, that looks like a prune with eyeballs. That's horrible.
If we all just did that right now, you're not alone.
Yeah. Oh, did you? You're like, yeah. Oh, now try it with a mirror. If you want to know Jen's life, try it with a mirror. How about that? It's so I do this for an hour, and then I do my red light therapy, which I've also been doing. It's just such a weird life that I've been thrown into. So anyway, the thing with this whole journey that I've been on, as I've been saying on the Patreon, I do have moments of panic. I do have moments where I lose my ever-loving mind because I think I'm not seeing progress. I really cannot say I think this is getting better. And what if this is my life? I have that happens. And one of the things I'm doing, I was also talking about this on the Patreon, that I'm trying to stay curious. I'm trying to stay interested in my new experience of being a hideous bog person. Like I'm trying to stay curious about that experience. And one of the things is though, you find that when you are thrown into a life that you didn't want and never asked for, you do meet some new people along the way. Like a lot of times when you're looking for the way God will bring something good out of something bad, a lot of it will be through the people who you encountered through that experience. Like an example that comes to mind is I remember when my grandfather passed away, which was sad, but I mean, he was 100. He'd lived a good life, Yeah. And so of course it was still very sad, but it was one of those bittersweet sort of moments. And I had been just really in the struggle with a bunch of young children, and I needed more of a village than I had, and I did not know where I would encounter that, and I was desperate, and I was also again very sad to lose. This was my last living grandparent, and I remember I prayed. I was like, I know it was his time. I mean, I get it, but I was like, gosh, God, if you could show me how you're bringing good out of this, show me that redemption, show me the resurrection that comes from death, that sort of thing. And at his wake, there were a bunch of extended relatives who I didn't really know that well. I actually met a bunch of people around here that I'm related to, that they were, it would be like my grandfather's great uncle's descendant or something like that. And so I ended up meeting this gal who I can't even explain how I'm related to. She's probably like a third cousin once removed, but just a pleasant, beautiful young woman. I want to say she was about 20 at the time, something like that. And she actually mentioned that she was in between jobs and she would love to do nanny work and that kind of thing. It was such a godsend. She was with us for I want to say 8 months or so, just on and off. I mean, it wasn't a full-time thing or anything, but when Joe and I just wanted to go out or I needed some time to catch up on things, she was able to come work for us, and it was so nice that she was a relative. It just made us feel a little more comfortable. And so that's an example of something that I just felt like that was a God moment. Like, it's objectively bad and sad when someone passes away, but you just kind of see these good things coming from difficult things. And actually, another example of that seamless tapestry that this podcast is I just want to mention that right after we record this, we are doing a beer tasting with our friends who came all the way out from Florida, who they brewed some beer just for us. Now, many moons ago, I told you guys how I met our friends Jim and Sandra Walsh, and they have, what is it? It's St. Bridget's. Yeah, St. Bridget's Cross Brewing. I don't think they sell this beer. They should. I think they're afraid of money. They're terrified of money. They're like, if my weed be too red, who wants to be a billionaire? Not us. But here is how I met them again. And it's another story. Tuck this story away for next time you just feel like something very frustrating is happening and going wrong. Tuck this away as just a very creative, cool way that something great came out of something frustrating. So some of you guys know the story that I was at my tour stop in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and these lovely people, who later I would find out their names are Jim and Sandra Walsh, they came and they brought beer that they had brewed that also had my tour logo on it, which I thought was so cool. And so I said, I'd love to taste it. And so we opened it right there backstage. And so I had a sip. It is the best beverage I have ever tasted, period, end of sentence. I was like, what is happening in my mouth? This is insane. And I was like, okay, I don't know what you guys did with this beer, but I need to hear all about it. And I said, thank you so much. It was great to meet you. And they only had one bottle. Because here's the frustrating moment I want you to remember, because there's a lesson here. When they were bottling it, I can't remember the story, but I want to say a couple other bottles broke or something. They intended to give me multiple bottles, but something happened that was very frustrating to them, because they had this whole vision. They were going to come, bring me multiple bottles, blah, blah, blah. And something didn't happen. So there was only one bottle, and that was a great source of frustration to them. And so I said, no, it's great. One bottle is fine. And so I said, this will be my treat. That was kind of a difficult show for me, Fort Lauderdale 2022. It was a little bit of a difficult show for me for just totally separate reasons. And I was like, you know what? This is great. Look at God looking out for me. I will save this beer, and this will be my treat. This will be my special treat to myself, just to give myself a little treat after the show. Now, my husband was traveling with me, which was so great that he was. I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't like to just do my own thing and have complete control over my tour. I love it. I love it when my husband travels with me, because it's a great chance to see how other people do things. As you guys know, he travels with no luggage, so he washes his clothes in the sink and, hangs them out to dry. And I don't want my hotel room to be like an aesthetic, this is my chance to be like an influencer girly where everything is neat and tidy. He thinks DoorDash and room service are too expensive. So he goes down to the local grocery store and just fills our room with like grocery bags and napkins, all this detritus of like he's making his PBJ or whatever, like there on the counter. And so it looks just like home. just crap everywhere. And just in all this, like, here's like his bites of cheese that he put out. Oh, there's some wrappers from something else. All this generic brand stuff he got at the store. The other thing, guys, is he grew up in a bad part of town, and that has left him, I would say, overly safety conscious. He feels like he's just about the right level of safety conscious. So he does not like having housekeeping come. To him, that's like you know, to request housekeeping would be like to request ISIS comes into, I mean, just very, very, very dangerous thing to do. So that's what I love, is that when we travel, instead of coming back into a hotel room that is like my chance to be an aesthetic girly and everything is nice and neat and tidy, we have clothes hanging to dry from the shower. We have got food trash scattered everywhere, and none of it can be cleaned up because we don't believe in housekeeping when my husband travels with me. And so it's wonderful. That's just a lot of things for me to be grateful for when he travels with me. It's wonderful. I wish he could come to every show. It's crazy that he can't. He was with me, and he was like, "Hey, that beer looks amazing. Can I have a sip?" And I would no was kind of where my heart was, but I was trying to be, listen, I watch Proverbs 31 woman Instagram. So as a good submissive wife, I was like, yes, my head of the household husband. Yes, you can have a sip. So I was on stage. And for those of you who don't know this story, Caitlin, why don't we just play this video here on YouTube? My husband was walking around backstage. For some reason, he was videoing. So I'm glad we have evidence. Just listen and see if you can ascertain what happened to that beer that I was so looking forward to drinking. You can hear me there on stage. That's first little trip. Oh, maybe stop walking with the beer, but nay. Did you hear that splat in there? That was my beer. That was my special beer. And I did not realize that it had been spilled and it was gone until after all the crowds left and everything. So I went on, it was episode 102 of this podcast that was published on May 5th of 2022. You can look it up. You can hear it. I went on this podcast and I said, does anyone know who brought me that beer? Because I will not rest. I will burn down my whole life if I have to. I'll quit my career. I will become an investigator. Like, you know how there's some novels about like someone was like avenging a murder and so they become a private detective. Like that would be me. I would become a private detective to find out who gave me that beer. Luckily, these lovely people listened to my podcast, so we got in touch, and now Caitlin and I are going to be hanging out with them. They're in town. They brought us more beer, and if you want to look us up on YouTube, you can see their new beer bottle. It is called Splattered Backstage at a Comedy Show. Foreign Extra Stout, 8% ABV. And you can see this lovely bottle that they did here on YouTube. But here is and I really think of this as your spilled beer lesson. I really value our friendship with Jim and Sandra Walsh. They are so fun and cool and interesting. They're here for the weekend. So I was talking to them last night as well. And I was like, I am so glad I know them. We just click. I mean, we're just peas in a pod. I mean, this is awesome. And I think they're glad they know us. I mean, they came to one of my shows. I assume they knew something about me and they listened to the podcast. And so it's just great. It's like a great friendship. And we text, we keep in touch. And think about this. None of this would have happened if they hadn't had that brewing accident where the other bottles that they intended to bring me got ruined, because I would have just been able to try one of the other bottles of beer, and I would have let it go. I wouldn't have mentioned it to my husband 15 times before we even got back to the hotel. I would have been like, hey, let's let bygones be bygones. I don't fixate on things. I don't hold grudges.
Never.
But I would have been like, what I wanted to do was taste the beer. I got more of the beer. So fine. And I might have mentioned that I appreciate it on the podcast, but I'm very blessed that you guys bring me quite a few things. So I wouldn't have necessarily made this big deal of being like, you guys have to help me find who gave me the beer, as long as I got to have some more bottles of it. So just imagine their moment of frustration when those other bottles didn't work out. It's like they had, think about this, guys. They had labels printed and everything with my tour logo on it. They were going to give me, I can't remember whether it was a 4-pack or a 6-pack. And especially for those of you who gift giving is your love language, really sit with how frustrating that would be, that now you only have one bottle. But see, God was at work. Mm-hmm. He was afoot, because now something very cool came from that loss, that now we're buds. So just remember that. Next time something crazy happens in your life, be like, I could be friends with Jen because of this, And now for the people who hate listen to it, that's a very depressing thought. They could be like, no, please, God, how can this get worse? It's so awful. Okay. So, there's so much I wanted to get to. You know what? How far are we in, Caitlin? 40-something?
41:20.
You know what? I'm going to get to the main topic now. This is crazy. It's actually sort of probably about halfway through the podcast. A lot of times I get to the main topic in like the last minute. There's so much good stuff to talk about. We will save that until next week. And by the way, one of the things that I'm going to talk about, you'll get a sneak preview of it on the Village Hustle Patreon. Episode 79 just came out. I had AI do headshots for me. You can have AI headshots. And that didn't go, because I can't take new headshots now. And you know what's funny is that Leah Darrow, my good friend, I mentioned her last episode, she has done this before and it looks amazing. It looks exactly like her, and they're perfect. I mean, she could use them. I think she might use them professionally, like on her website. I mean, you would never know. I didn't know it wasn't her when she first showed me the picture. AI finds me to be an enigma. I've never had it work out that well. So in episode 79 of the Village Hustle Patreon, I walk you guys through this process of getting AI headshots. And again, when you join the Patreon, that's the higher level. But when you join that level, you get everything from the lower level, and all levels of the Patreon get access to my live State of the Dumpster Fire chats, as well as the replays. All of those replays are archived. Patreon.com/thisisjen. Okay, here's the main topic. I want you guys to take up more space. I want you to start by owning the physical space that you're in and extend it from there. Here's what made me think of this. You guys, I mean, we're so much alike. We are so much alike. You guys do something that I have caught myself doing many times when we chat after my shows. So I always stay and hang out after my shows, which is why you should go to jfcomedytour.com and get your tickets. Oh, I forgot to give the website earlier. Yes, with my big tour announcement that we finally did, jfcomedytour.com for the full list of cities. So I stay after every show and I chat with people and hang out. We take pictures and whatever. And a lot of it's interesting to watch you guys' body language when we meet. Very often it's almost like you're trying to make yourself smaller, like you duck down your posture almost a little bit, and almost like you're sneaking up to come say hi. Does that visual make sense to them, Caitlin? Do you think they're tracking?
Yeah, because I do it.
I know. Well, because I do it too. Yeah. I do it too. What's wrong with us? We're hot. And I'm talking to you, the podcast listener. We're hot. And we're smart. And we're funny. Why are we doing that? But I do it too. And it's interesting because I see you guys do it. And I'm like, this woman is so smart and funny. And like, why would she like duck down when she's coming to say hi? Like, we're the same, like we obviously share the same brain. This is a very unique podcast. This is not like other podcasts. And so if you can track with it, we share the same brain. And so it's like, there's no reason that someone should do that, but a lot of you guys do it. And I do it. I do it with everyone. And I've gotten better at it. I've really started to work on that. But it's about being afraid to take up space. And I guarantee you that all of us who do the ducking down, like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I hope I'm not taking up too much time, like, oh my gosh, excuse me, which is also weird when you're 6 feet tall trying to do the ducking down that you're still 6 inches taller than the nearest person. So I'm just like this self-conscious ogre. Well, especially with my face like this. I mean, it's just a real like, well, I understand why she would be self-conscious, but real like Quasimodo isn't feeling confident today. So no, Quasimodo was short. It's like, okay, whatever. I can't find a good. I'm just like a big self-conscious ogre. So I guarantee you that if you are doing the, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, excuse me, kind of making yourself small, ducking down, you also hesitate to take up space in other areas of your life. You hesitate to take up space on the calendar. You hesitate to take up space if there are friends you talk to, especially if it's someone you don't know very well. If any of you are single and dating, hesitating to take up space in people's texts. Like, I might be annoying them. Like, oh, I don't know. Oh, hey, sorry to bug you. I just, it's that no worries if not. That no worries if not. It's that no worries if not attitude. That is our battle cry.
Yeah.
That is the battle cry of people who are afraid to take up space. No worries if not. That's us. And it's, I mean, I swear with some of you guys, like at the meet and greets, I mean, I could be like, you could be like walking up with a wrapped gift. And I could, like, if I were lost my mind and was like, get them out of here and put them in jail for even offering me that gift, you guys would be like, no worries. No, that's fine. I'm sorry. Like, that's fine. I mean, and I would too. I would do it too. I get it. Because it's not natural to us to take up space. And here's the thing. I've said this before about insecurity. Whenever we are having insecure posture and we're saying insecure things, ironically, it actually burdens the people around us, because what we're telling them is that we need reassurance. You're making them feel like you need to be reassured. And especially if you want to talk about with parenting, let's say about taking time in the calendar, taking the time that you need, then it can have a real negative impact on people, because one, you're not getting what you need to recharge your batteries, or then if you do, you're all stressed out about it. And I've said before that kids need confident parents. You are the pilot of their plane. And actually, with everything going on in the airline industry right now, like, I mean, listen, when you're afraid to take up space in your family, so to speak, when you lack that confidence, that leadership energy, your kids kind of feel like this plane is going to end up upside down. We're going to pull a Delta and be, getting off of this thing, like just falling out of the emergency exit upside down. Be like, hey, can I still have my snack? That's because you're the pilot of their plane, so to speak. And this is true really in any sort of social situation. Listen to me very carefully. Hit the listen to me very carefully sound effect. You are doing other people a favor when you boldly take up space. I bet that doesn't feel true to them, does it? Mm-mm. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I get it, but it's true. It really, like, you guys should try it. That's what you should. I want you guys to do a week of boldly taking up space. Just try it and see how the people around you relax. See how they relax when you boldly take up space and you don't do the shrinking down. Like if you're at a function for your kid's school and you're trying to find somewhere to sit, rather than doing the, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Is this seat taken? Just confidently, is this seat taken? And just kind of start sitting down anyway, and not, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, oh, I'm going to make myself really small. Just chill, just relax. You know, if you want to stretch your feet, whatever, like physically take up space. When you guys are in my meet and greet line to say hi to me in Buffalo, for example, or Detroit, or Milwaukee, or Philadelphia, or Richmond, or Virginia Beach. No, I'm kidding. Nobody's going to be at that show. I'm worried I don't have ticket sale numbers yet. I'm worried. Or Denver, or Plano, or Tyler, Texas, or Columbus, or New York City. Like, I'm just giving examples of jfcomedytour.com. When you guys are in line to say hi and I finally get to meet you, here's what I want you to have in mind. I'm lucky to get to meet you. And I feel that way. I know you guys are interesting. And also, think about this. How cool is it for me to meet people who I know I have something in common with? If you're at my show, obviously we have something in common. That's very cool for me. And even if, let's say, if you live in Svalbard, that island on the North Pole that I have the weird fascination with. Now, I will do a Svalbard show one day, but let's say that's where you are. So you'll never, not soon, are you probably going to end up going to one of my live shows. Just imagine this. I actually have a lot of listeners in Australia. I haven't made it down there quite yet. So just imagine, even if you don't think you'll be able to come to Buffalo, Detroit, Milwaukee, I won't go through the whole thing again. I would want you to stand in that line with the gravitas of, hey, I've got cool stuff to offer here too. Like that. I mean, this is like, I've done a lot in my life. I'm an interesting person, and lucky Jen that she gets to meet someone who chose to spend their evening with her and that has something in common with her. She's blessed. She's so lucky that I'm here. That's how you should approach it. And that's how you should approach life when you go to the PTA meeting. Frankly, when you should approach your family that way. And of course, that you expressing love to them and like how much you appreciate them as well. Of course, it goes both ways. But who wants a parent who is always feeling small and is afraid to take up space in the family, on the family's calendar? Just for anything. Do you want that? Would you want a parent who's afraid to take up space? Your kids don't want that. And I think really what it comes down to, this was what kicked off this whole topic for today. I think what it comes down to is we are afraid of being wrong, and we are afraid of doing something wrong. I think it is that fear that drives us to want to be small, because if you are a tiny little mouse who nobody notices, if you mess something up, it is less noticeable. If you have been the wallflower in the corner, just staying in the shadows, staying very small, and let's say you spill your drink, you get some on you, it's noticeable on your shirt, it's on the floor. Well, if you've been a shrinking wallflower, probably nobody would even notice. Whereas if you have boldly been taking up space, like, hey, how are you? I'm so-and-so. So nice to meet you. How are you doing? If you've been boldly taking up space and you're in the middle of a group and you've made yourself very visible, well, everyone's going to notice if you spill that drink. And that's what you fear. You fear doing something wrong or being wrong. one of the transformative things for me in terms of taking up space with my family is when I had my second book, One Beautiful Dream, was that was honestly craziness, writing that book, how busy I was, because I had the daily talk radio show and I was writing this book. And unlike my first book, I had a very strict deadline and it was a whole thing. I like writing, but it was a lot. And there was a big contract involved. I really had to hit my deadlines. This was not something that I could just blow off. I really had to hit those deadlines. But I was very busy, mom stuff, work stuff, radio stuff. And it was just becoming clear that the way things were going, I wasn't going to be able to deliver a quality product by this deadline. And I had an idea of what might allow me to get this done and create something I was really proud of, but it sounded terrifying. I needed to go to a hotel room and just get out of my house, lock myself in a hotel room, put my phone on airplane mode, and just get stuff done. But that sounded terrifying to take up that kind of space on my family's calendar. And I could even see a way to work it between some babysitting. My mom could help a little bit and Joe could do, I could see how it could work, but still it felt insane. It felt insane to take up that kind of space. And Joe, my husband, who has that MBA businessy kind of mind, when I went to him, I said, finally, I got the courage to pitch it. And I said, I need 1 day in a hotel room, just 1 day. I'll spend one night. And he pointed out, okay, you can't check in until 3 or 4 p.m. and you have to check out at 11 a.m. That's not even, you wouldn't even get 24 hours. 1 day doesn't make sense. And so I took a big gulp and I was like, oh, okay, 2 days. And it just felt like, arrest me now, CPS. This is so negligent. How dare I take up this kind of space in the family's calendar? And he asked me how much I had to do, and I told him, and he was like, "No, you need 4 days." And I was like, "Oh, I could not. I mean, there's no, I couldn't." And he was like, "I think you have to do this. I mean, I think your publisher would be like, no, you need those 4 days." And so I ended up doing it. And when I came home, I was doing that, kind of slinking down small, oh my gosh, guys, I'm so sorry. Telling my mom, I'm so sorry. The babysitter, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And what's interesting is it did end up being a very stressful experience. People were kind of stressed when I got back, and there was a lot of re-entry chaos to deal with. So what's interesting is the next year, I signed a 2-book deal with my publisher. So that's how you guys got Your Blue Flame, because that was a 2-book deal. So I also had to write Your Blue Flame the next year, and it was the same situation. But this time I finally got a clue, and I was like, you know what? It's not doing anyone any favors for me to be so terrified of taking up space. And again, that fear that I felt was I was afraid of messing up, of doing something wrong. That's what I was afraid of. That this was the wrong decision. That I never should have signed this book deal. That this was just wrong. Everything I was doing was wrong. And I realized that this is when I started to realize how important leadership is to parents. I was like, I don't think I'm helping my kids by acting like I'm leaving the house to set up a meth lab, how is this good for anyone? I mean, all this is doing, kids' stress level is very closely correlated with their parents' stress level. And so if I act like I'm leaving the house to strip or start an OnlyFans or do something crazy, that stress is going to be projected onto the kids. And so I actually spent a little bit of that time, the first few hours I was in the hotel, to take a deep breath and be like, you know what? I own this. It doesn't mean that it was the perfect decision. Maybe I shouldn't have signed a 2-book deal. I don't know. It doesn't mean that definitely every move I made leading up to this was perfect and could never be questioned. But it does mean accepting it is what it is. We're here, and I do have this very significant obligation. And it is not doing my children or my husband any favors for me to act like I'm the worst person in the world for taking this time. So this time I took a totally different approach. I was excited. I kind of told the kids what I needed, which is, by the way, something I think moms should do a little more often. If there's some sort of emotional affirmation you want, just say it. Let your family know. So I kind of gave them the vibes of like, could you guys hype me up like in the Rocky training montage? You know, when Rocky's heading into the big fight and the whole city of Philly is like, yeah, they're cheering him on. I was like, this is that. I've got my big fight coming up. I've got this book that I've got to get this deadline done, and I want it to be great. I want this to be my best work, and but I need to be hyped up. So we ordered whatever, some kind of nice pizza or something for the night before. And I told the kids about the big challenges and they were hyping me up and we're like, yeah, we're going to do this. And I was sending funny pictures of myself in the hotel room and keeping them posted. And you know, what's funny is my college age kids, especially my daughter, have referenced that they remember me doing that. And now that they are becoming adults as well, and this was many years ago, they still remember it. And especially my daughter has mentioned that just seeing me take up the space, the calendar space that I needed to get things done and make it happen and do it unapologetically and even bring an element of fun to it, that has helped her as she goes into adulthood not be afraid to take up space in her own life, to tell those people, or frankly, even to tell us, her family, if I'm asking her to come home, to say, listen, I've got a lot to do. It's not going to work out this weekend. And I'm like, oh, boundaries. I'm so proud of you. Like, good for you. But it is actually a great model for your children. Because I think sometimes we almost forget when you're in the trenches, especially of having young children, that these little kids are going to grow up and be adults, and they are going to have these same problems that you have. I did kind of somehow miss that when my kids were little. I sort of forgot that. These kids are going to grow up. They will face the same pressures that you are facing right now. So what are you modeling for them? Are you modeling? You just knuckle down and make yourself small and don't ask for that nap. You know, don't tell people that you need some extra time. If you want to get away for a hotel trip, like just do one night and don't take two. Like that's what you're modeling for your kids. You're telling them in adulthood, hey, make yourself as small as possible. Don't take up any space. And definitely don't get what you need. Just run yourself ragged like you are not human and you have no human needs at all. That's what you guys need to do. That's what you're modeling for your kids. Whereas when you accurately assess what you need, when you accurately assess your talents and all the great things that you add to the world, and you walk in that space and you walk with that gravitas, and again, you even add an element of fun to whatever it is you're doing. Like, again, if you've made yourself big and bold in a group and you spill that drink and now everyone's looking at you and you've made a mess, you make it fun. You laugh at it. You model for them what it looks like to be bold and have things not turn out perfectly. You own whatever decisions you've made, and you bring gravitas even to the mistakes. Like, for example, of course, when I would go to the hotel room to write, of course I worried, like, what if there was some chaos at the house? What if things got really difficult? And there is a temptation when you've made yourself big, when you've taken up space, if something goes wrong, to shrink back down. Like, oh, well, I'm so sorry. And instead, you need to respond even to the things that go wrong with that gravitas. Like if I were doing that now that I've learned what I've learned, and this actually happens sometimes. I'll be off at a show and I'm out, on tour, and some chaos will happen at home. And instead of responding with guilt, like, oh, I'm so sorry, oh, I shouldn't have, just responding with gravitas, like, all right, let's assess the situation. What's going on? Like, is it serious? Like, what should we do? And that just helps everyone de-stress and stay calm and feel positive about the situation when you own all of these choices that you have made that have allowed you to take up space, even when it turns out, yeah, you did mess something up. Yeah, maybe this wasn't the right decision, like maybe you're, to go back to the analogy of when I meet you guys after shows, maybe you come up on stage, you're big, you're bold, and then like you accidentally trip and knock into me and knock me off the stage. I mean, that's something that would happen to me. Like if you're like me, like that would happen to you and it would happen to me. So I'm sure that's going to happen. And, and again, instead of shrinking like, oh my gosh, oh, I'm so sorry, just like laughing, I'd be laughing about it. Like just owning like, yes, this is who I am. And these are the kind of things that happen to me. And these are the mistakes that I make. And I'm not apologizing for it. I mean, you might apologize like, I'm sorry, I knocked you off the stage. But like, I'm not apologizing for taking up space. And I'm not apologizing for what my needs are. And I'm not apologizing for making the space for my personality and my needs in the whole ball of wax. Because that's actually a favor to other people. Certainly it's a favor to your family. But even if you're just in a social situation with randos who you don't know, it puts people so at ease. And it makes them want to be like you. And you're forging a trail for other people in that room to follow. When you unapologetically know who you are and what your needs are, and you make up space, you take up space for all of it, other people look at you and they're like, oh, I want to do that too. And you've now blazed a trail that they can follow. This wasn't even half the content that I got to today. Next week's episode is going to be another banger because there was so much good stuff that I didn't even get to today. So, hey, go out, take up space. Don't apologize for it. And just see how comfortable that makes everyone around you. Go get your tour tickets, jfcomedytour.com, and we will be back with you next week.